Hello and welcome back to the Morning Bulletin here on the Blood Red channel. I'm your host, Edward Kay. Joining me today is Matt Addison, and we are going to be, of course, previewing Liverpool's upcoming game tonight against Leicester City at the King Power Stadium. And Matt, do you think it's just a case now of Liverpool needing to win every game and just hope that there's a chance for top four?
Yeah, I think so. I think they obviously need to win the three games to have any hope. I think there is still an opportunity. I think this weekend was one where you felt maybe that Leeds could do something, and they almost did. And I think we might look at the Patrick Bamford missed penalty and have a few little regrets at some point. Obviously, it's Liverpool's fault rather than Leeds' fault that Liverpool are where they are. But yeah, it's one of those. I thought the two games that Newcastle and Manchester United played this weekend could have been points dropped. Obviously, there was for Newcastle, but not a defeat. And Manchester United, kind of, from what I have heard and from what I've seen of that game, it felt like a bit of a nothing game. But they managed to get that win, and it's not been a great period for them. I still think there's opportunities. Maybe other teams could cause them a little bit of trouble. As soon as Wolves went one down, you kind of felt like they might be on the beach a little bit. They wouldn't be too worried about getting back into that game. But yeah, for Liverpool, they've just got to win and hope. I think they've also probably got to go and score a few goals. I think there's probably, I would say, a growing possibility depending on the other results. If Newcastle were to draw a couple of games, maybe that's a slightly more likely scenario now than the teams both above Liverpool would have to drop points in two matches. So maybe a couple of draws for Newcastle and maybe try and turn that goal difference around. Maybe that could come into it at some point. But yeah, for Liverpool tonight at least, it's just a case of trying to win first and foremost. If there are a couple of goals up with half an hour left, maybe then you start to think about the goal difference. I don't think Aston Villa next weekend is one where you can think about goal difference. I think that's just got to be one where you try and win it. And it might be a scrappy one that they can kind of get over the line in. Obviously, Southampton already down on the final day. That's one where maybe they could score a few goals as well. But yeah, I think goal difference will come into it a little bit. But obviously, you've got to get yourself into a position to be able to think about that. I think it could be a really tricky game tonight if Liverpool start poorly and go one down. Suddenly, then the crowd gets behind them and it becomes difficult. But yeah, if they can get through the first half, maybe get a couple of goals, maybe then they can start to think about the wider picture and the goal difference and trying to just score a few and kind of, I can't remember the exact difference to Newcastle, but if they could get a little bit closer to them, I think that would add to the pressure as well.
Yeah, I think goal difference will be an interesting one if that comes into play, especially if it's Liverpool obviously going past United on goal difference. That would be quite amusing after the 7-0. And as you said, who knows how many we could get against Southampton on the last day with them already being down. It might be a one final Premier League 9-0 for them before they go. But we'll pay attention to tonight first. Obviously, Leicester are in some serious bother in the relegation battle as well. How hard are you expecting them to make it? Obviously, it is an away game, so are you expecting them to really put up a fight against the Reds?
I think so. I think it's at that point in the season now where obviously, they're a team that shouldn't be in that situation. They've got lots of quality players that can hurt you, but ultimately they haven't shown that enough this season. And it's not like they're too good to go down. I don't think anyone at this point in the season, if you've played 35 games and you're second bottom, then ultimately you're in that position for a reason. So there is players in there that you'd be slightly fearful of. I think James Maddison is very, very good. I think Harvey Barnes is an excellent player that's caused Liverpool problems, and it'll be interesting to see, obviously, with the new kind of Trent role, if Ibrahim Konate has to deal with him and maybe with a Vardy or whoever plays up top. That could be, in an interesting sort of avenue for Leicester. I'm sure that they would look to target that sort of thing. But it will be interesting to see sort of what sort of performance they put in. But I think, for me, it comes down to if Liverpool can just sort of kill the game in the first 20, 25 minutes. I don't mean necessarily go and score a couple, but just keep possession, make sure that they're in control, don't do anything stupid. I think the Leicester crowd will get a little bit nervous, and if they're not seeing much of the ball, if they're being a little bit frustrated, they're not really able to counter-attack. I think that's when it becomes a little bit easier for Liverpool. So it's one of those games where it's always been tricky. Liverpool have had some poor results under Jurgen Klopp away at Leicester, but I think, when you let the crowd get up and when you let them do what they want to do, counter-attack, play with the speed that they can do, it's exactly the sort of thing that Liverpool have struggled with for the majority of this season away from home, but obviously less so in the last few weeks. So, yeah, hopefully they can just sort of be controlling, dominant. I can't remember which game it was now, but there was a game 2 or 3 games ago, I think it was, where Liverpool kind of didn't really do much in the first half and then got a couple of goals late on and kind of blitzed it. I think that's got to be the template again for them. And if they can do that, Leicester are definitely there for the beating, because they've been really poor this season. They've got so many outstanding players in forward areas, but defensively they are really poor. So firstly, try and keep a clean sheet. And if you do that, I'm pretty sure that Liverpool will score at some point.
Yeah, it does tend to be an eventful one at the King Power. As you said, some not great results there, but also some fantastic results. The one where we went there and beat them 4-1, the league winning season, sticks in my mind. Obviously, I think that was when everybody realised Liverpool probably were going to go on and win the title. But it's been 9 days since we've seen the Reds in action. Obviously, at the business end of the season, that's not really something we're used to seeing for Liverpool. Normally, we'd still be in a couple cup competitions maybe. But Klopp, in his press conference, was quite happy to have the time off, get everyone fit again. But do you think there's any chance it could have hampered Liverpool? Because we were on quite a bit of a roll, really, weren't we?
Yeah, it's always a difficult balance, isn't it? I think Liverpool are always a better team when they're playing twice a week and they've not really got too much time to think about it. I know, Jurgen Klopp and his players, they've been in Barcelona this week. They've had a little bit of a rest. They've had a break. Maybe that is something that you would say is a positive for most teams. But I am always a little bit concerned about that sort of thing. I think rhythm and momentum is something that Liverpool need much more than lots of other teams. So, yeah, look, it wouldn't surprise me if the first few minutes of the game were a little bit nervy and a little bit kind of easing their way back into it. But you just hope that they can get through that and do enough to get through that period without going a goal down and giving any encouragement. And I think that just plays into the fact that you've got to sort of take it step by step and sort of keep the ball and try and be dominant. If you do the simple things and don't give away anything daft, then I think you've kind of got the platform then to go on and beat Leicester relatively comfortably, I would think. So, yeah, it's always interesting, isn't it, when Liverpool have a break, whether it's an international break or a break like this where the fixtures have just fallen the way that they have. But I don't know. I think possibly you can make the argument in this case, given that there's not loads of midfield options. They've had a bit more time now for Diogo Jota to get over that little knock that he had. There's maybe a little bit more reason to think that this could have been helpful this time around, but I wouldn't suspect that the team will be much different to what it was 9 days ago. I don't think there's really many more options. I'd be expecting Curtis Jones to start. I think there's 5 forwards fit, isn't there? So you've got to pick 3 from there. But I mean, even that, I would suggest is probably going to be Diaz, Gakpo, and Salah. I don't think I can really see too much other than that. Maybe Diogo Jota, but I'd be surprised if it was Darwin Núñez. So. Yeah, there's a couple of decisions I think for Jurgen Klopp to make, but there's not loads of things really to be decided. I think you've just got to hope that they've not lost too much of that sharpness over the last 9 days and can just kind of click straight back into gear.
Yeah, I think I'd be very surprised if Núñez started and if Curtis Jones didn't. Obviously, he's having a really good run in the side at the moment. But we'll take a look now at that top 4 race again. United and Newcastle both 4 points clear in 3rd and 4th with 3 games left to play. Obviously, Liverpool playing first, a bit of a chance to pile on the pressure. But Newcastle's games they've got left, they're playing Brighton, Leicester and Chelsea. United have got Bournemouth, Chelsea and Fulham. So it's a fairly similar run-in, really. Obviously, both got to play Chelsea. Leicester and Bournemouth have both been in and around the relegation battle. And then Fulham and Brighton have both done pretty well this season. So if you were going to pick one of them that was going to drop out of the top 4, Matt, who do you think it might be?
I've thought all along that it might have been United in terms of Manchester United in terms of that, just because you look at the fixtures that they had. I thought the Wolves one might have been a little bit more tricky for them, but I think it could be either of them. It could be, it will go down to the last day. I think whichever way it goes, you've got to just hope really that the pressure does tell. I think Newcastle did pretty well to come back against Leeds, but they weren't massively convincing. It took a couple of penalties. It took stupid errors from Leeds defenders to give them those chances. They didn't have loads of chances within that game. They weren't absolutely blowing Leeds away, which you think of how poor Leeds can be at certain times. Liverpool obviously scored 6 there not that long ago. They've got a new manager, but they're not a particularly brilliant team. And Newcastle conceded a couple of goals, didn't really create that much. Callum Wilson was speaking last week about how they're looking over the shoulder at Liverpool and sort of seemingly being nervous within that dressing room. So I think there's an opportunity there, but I don't know. It's a tough one to pick, isn't it? I mean, the smart money I think would be on neither of them doing enough. Liverpool winning the 3 games and probably falling, a point short or whatever. But I don't know. It's going to be tight. Liverpool can just win their own games, and I think if Liverpool win tonight, you then look at that Newcastle-Brighton game coming up. I think you look at that one and think there's an opportunity, particularly when Brighton played as they did. Obviously, the week before they were terrible against Everton, but then bounced back and were brilliant against Arsenal. If it's the same Brighton that beat Arsenal that goes to St James's Park, I think there's a reasonable chance that could happen. But I mean, even then, a draw in that game could potentially help Liverpool. If Chelsea can get a draw and Brighton can get a draw, it then comes down to the goal difference, doesn't it? If Liverpool win all the 3 games, so yeah, they've just got to win tonight and see what happens. There's nothing they can do, and if they don't make the top 4, it won't be because of this last 3 games. It'll be because of what came before that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think I look at Newcastle as well. Obviously, as funny as it would be to get in there above Man United, I think Newcastle still having Brighton, as you say. I think that Everton result was just a bit of an anomaly, really. They've been really good this season. And then with them having Chelsea on the last day, I mean, who knows what's going to happen there? Because I don't think anybody knows what's going on at Chelsea at the moment. Maybe there'll be a few players there looking to make a statement and not get sold in the summer. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens tonight. Hopefully Liverpool can win and keep the pressure on United and Newcastle. But that's all we've got time for here on the Morning Bulletin today. So from myself and Matt Addison, it's thanks, and we'll see you next time.